Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Say Report. I'm your host, Devin Decker, who for some reason just said, let's kick it. And joining me, my host companion, Sejan Sarowick.
Man,
Sejan?
if you had just leaned into it, like we could have just gone for it. Like I was all amped up after you said that. I felt like that was a real
Why would
motivational
me
speech,
saying,
chap.
let's kick it, amp you up, Sejan? Is something related to kicking going on right now?
Oh man, how how much can we force this in? Uh man.
I don't.
Yeah, no, we're sitting in the middle of the World Cup, Dev. We're sitting here. Halftime just finished up. We have Argentina and France going at it, and Argentina's ahead by two. So just to kind of place where we're at, all of this is in relation to a sport that neither of us has any more information about than that.
Yeah, seriously. The extent of my knowledge of football, or as we call it, soccer. Do you know why it's called soccer, Sejan?
Because it's a sucker's bet. No, I have no idea. What are we doing?
Oh well, it's because it's association football. That's the real term of it. And when we couldn't call it
I was,
football in America, so
I
we
was.
took what? Yeah,
So instead of taking the football part, we took the association part and just call it
and
that.
we took the SOC from that, and then added another CER to make it soccer in America. There's a
This
reason
is.
why they hate
It's not a
us.
good one. Yeah, that's not. Oh, okay. Yeah, no, it's a good reason to hate us. I thought you meant there was a reason why we call it that, and I was like, that's
No,
not
the
working.
reason why it comes from association football is the proper term for it. But rather than just calling it association football, we came up with a whole completely new term for the sport.
Because we're just that special, apparently.
We're America, right? We feel like we're better than everybody. And the really gross thing about that is it kind of makes sense where that attitude comes from. Because America, against every other
This will be
country in
interesting,
the
everybody.
world, well, no,
Everybody, pull up a chair and listen to this.
against every other country in the world, America's basically a teenager. And when you were a teenager, what did you think? You were better and smarter than everybody else, and anyone older than you was a damn fool.
Okay, so it's not that you feel like it's understandable that America feels that way because they should, but it's
No,
understandable that America feels that way because of course they do.
because like that's the thing. Give us like 500 years and then we realize it. But then you also need to think about the fact that every other country that has an issue with America, and let's be honest, most of them are justified issues that they have with America as a country. A lot of that stems from the fact that they're essentially boomers.
I hope we get into a nice like grizzled middle age like Zac Efron seems to be settling into, and not so much like a I'm gonna disappear middle age like Rupert Grint.
Yeah. Wow, Rupert Grint. I just saw a meme about him teaching Hermione to skip stones, and someone was explaining off of that meme that it's her teaching him how to use a wand in the first movie. And it's just like, man, I'm glad I stopped watching those movies at Order of the Phoenix. That's my takeaway from that. I don't know how I feel about Harry Potter anymore.
I don't know, man, but like I'd rather be watching the Quidditch World Cup than FIFA. I'll be honest with
At
everything
least
going
I
on.
understand how Quidditch works. Now, granted, if I had read a book that dedicated an entire chapter to how football works, maybe I would understand that too.
I mean, I saw the Big Green a lot when I was a kid.
The Big Green is a terrible example of how that works. They cheat. They like just outwardly cheat, don't
Yeah,
they?
yeah, there's some pretty bad
Isn't
moments in
there a
that movie. I
goat
mean,
on their team?
well, so there's like the weird like fantasy elements of that movie that I always kind of forget about. Like it's not that I forget, it's that I think about it as like a whole separate movie. That whole like weird B plot where like their goalie is just like fantasizing about the other teams actually being. I think the bit is that they're actually their mascots, right? Like he
Yes.
he, he fantasizes that the knights are knights. He fantasizes, yeah, like that kind of stuff.
And then
And
there's
so
that weird scene at the end where he is all of them combined. He's like the Voltron of everything they've beaten because he's
right,
eaten their hearts.
and become one with all of them. But yeah, there's this whole that whole element to it, right? And because of that, you don't see a lot of actual like soccer being played or football, association football being played. Well, I'm not doing this. Soccer. I'm calling it soccer, and people could be mad at me, and they're right to be, but that's what it is.
No, I'm not. I don't think that's what we've called it our entire. We were introduced to soccer in like first grade because that's when they decided, oh, America's going to try to make a go of this thing. I mean, maybe they hadn't before then, but it does really feel like our generation is generation soccer as a sport.
Yeah, there was definitely a well, and the thing is like it has to also we have to consider the fact that it might be a regional thing because there was like a Pee Wee football team, and it was not huge near me, but it was definitely something that I knew people on, right? But you find out that Pee Wee football has been huge everywhere in this country, and I never had that growing up, right? So I feel like it might be the inverse with that for soccer. Maybe because we didn't have Pee Wee football as a big thing, maybe soccer was what we leaned into. Eventually, it all became softball and baseball. That's what I remember, and like is it all got shifted to that.
It's funny
Like,
that you say that because, like, of course it did is my response to that. And the only reason why I say of course it did is because Rhode Island was like routinely going to the Little League World Series.
there it is. Yeah, that, and I think that's exactly what it was, right? So yeah, so I feel like in the '90s it was a lot of soccer, right, and then it evolved in the 2000s into a baseball and softball thing. Um, and I mean, like the softball, legitimately, like you talk about the baseball team consistently going to the little league stuff. Like softball teams all over the state used to do
Used to legitimately,
bangers.
yeah. Like
Yeah,
we
yeah.
have really good teams in Rhode Island, at least. Like that's all we can base this off of.
But I think that's why maybe soccer like feels so weird to us, and why like football is not the thing that I remember kids doing around me. Now, like I'm not now. Obviously, with everything that we've learned over the years between Friday Night Lights and concussion issues and documentaries and stuff, like I now know how many kids play football, and so it doesn't seem weird to me. But when I was a kid, 9 times out of 10, the kids around me were playing soccer, and that one other kid was playing football.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, the only reason I didn't play football is because my parents were like, he's not going to play football. And that's with a father who played football through high school. It's just like, it's too dangerous. We want to do other stuff. I played every other sport but football. And it's not because I wasn't interested in hockey the first time they took me to a hockey rink. And then, like,
Yeah,
I
I'd much
got
rather you
out there
play
and
hockey.
I freaking loved it. Like,
The hockey, the game of safety associations all over. Yeah, much safer game for kids to be playing.
I don't know. You wear a helmet is what I was going to say. You protect your shins. That's what was always interesting me. Like in soccer, all they wear are shin guards, right?
Devin, he's got such weak shins. What do we put him in?
He can only play games where his shins will be protected. I
Well, okay,
also
now
love
it turned
that.
into why did it become Irish? Why did
I thought that's what you were doing. I thought you made my parents Irish. The only
no?
way we'll get out of the potato farm, highty tighty tighty, is if Devin plays hockey. I don't know what I'm doing, honestly. I wasn't really prepared to talk about sports today. All I
No, but I
know
want to
is
hear this Irish hockey player some more. Well,
oh,
not even Irish hockey
it's
player's mom.
Irish hockey player parents. You need to shoot for the other goal. Don't clear it up the middle. Attack
Okay.
the boards.
I'm
Sorry.
so sorry,
This
world.
is what
I'm
you
so
did. You brought this out. I'm
well, we
loving
did
it.
shit on soccer, and now
I
we're
didn't mean to, like, I don't mean to shit on soccer. It's just not something that I enjoy. I enjoy rugby, and it's basically the same thing.
And we'd be remiss if we also did not point to some of the larger glaring political issues around like FIFA and stuff this year too, right? Like, so like
Oh,
we
I mean,
also America
well,
really gets to sit on its high horse this year and just be like, yeah, that's right, we've never believed in FIFA.
I mean, it's not just this year. FIFA has been a corrupt
Well,
organization.
right,
Probably
yeah,
going back to 2010, the first year that I watched the World Cup, because it was literally the only thing that was on the cruise ship for
sure.
the
We've
4 months of it.
we have learned a lot this year about well, the last couple of years about how FIFA does their shit, and I don't want to negate that just because they've always been corrupt, so I guess we just let it be. Like, no, we have
Oh, I'm
discovered some
not
shit.
neglecting it. I don't want it to seem like, oh, it's only this year that FIFA is bad. Other than that,
Well,
they've been a pillar of the community. No, 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 no. They've
yeah.
they've
I'm very curious to see what happens with the future of soccer going forward. It's really fun to watch this thing, and I'm only kind of half joking that as Americans we kind of sit on the sidelines and like get to like just kind of watch the show. Like I don't have it's nice to not have the emotional investment that we usually do in these geopolitical theater nonsense things, right? Like it's not Trump up there making America look bad and me like trying to hide myself in a corner, like don't associate me with them. Like I am legitimately divorced from this, and so this will be fun to watch.
Yeah. I mean, at the same time, though, we're also not without sin when you look at the Olympics and how just we lean into the Olympics as a country.
I mean, if you want to start talking about like the the weird ways in which like geo sports, like world sports, like, and the ways in which they play into politics, and how, because our politics have gotten corrupted, a lot of those sports have gotten corrupted. Like we could definitely go down that road,
I don't really
but
want to go down that road.
exactly,
It's just a fact of the
I'd
matter.
rather just sit here and make fun of FIFA some more.
I know, but I would feel bad if we didn't admit the fact that like we definitely went to Germany in the 1936 for the Olympics, just ignoring what else was going on.
Yeah, what I mean, but the other big thing about FIFA that gets really interesting to look at and really consider is that like we've been spending the last decade, maybe that's a little longer than real, but I'm trying to think of when like a lot of the FIFA EA video game stuff started blowing up, right? And like I want to go back to some of that stuff, that initial like reporting on EA making some decisions about like just like turning different yearly versions into just roster updates, and then like all of the like hidden fees that the EU ended up having to like straight up put legislation on. Like half of the loot box legislation that the EU has done over the years is all based on specifically FIFA, right? And
Yes.
EA and all that. FIFA the game, right? But I actually wonder how much is kind of related to a lot of what's going on with FIFA, the organization, in terms of just like they are the client in in that scenario. If they are working with EA to make a video game to represent their organization, I just have not heard much in that conversation that has really aimed at FIFA the organization. Everything has always been at EA, right? And that's because fanboys everywhere will love to take an opportunity to shit on EA. But I'm curious to hear if anybody looks into kind of the connections of what we now know to be a pretty corrupt political like player, right? Like that had kind of their finger on the thumb, or their finger on the
Pulse.
thumb,
They had the
their
finger
thumb
on
on
their
the
thumb.
scale. They had the thumb on this on the scale of like the direction of that video game series, and I've never really heard it connected to them. So, and maybe I'm wrong. I mean, maybe that's the other thing, is maybe somebody has done this, and I would love to see it if they have. But like that is a conversation I think worth having right now as we talk about kind of the corruption of FIFA. Is it's not just the corruption of FIFA because of what they're doing with these games, which outside of the U.S. is a huge thing. Like we're talking about a billion upon billion dollar industry that they are running, and they are corrupt motherfuckers, and that is terrible. But as far as the ways in which it affects me, as far as the ways in which it affects America the most, I honestly think the largest impact you might be talking about might actually be in something like merchandising in video games, right? And how that kind of shit has been affected, right? Is probably pretty gross as well.
It definitely helped to normalize loot boxes in a way that, like, of course, if the EU is against it, America's going to be like, no, we want it. We want it. Charge us all the money. We'll pay it. Like,
Well, because
we,
that's freedom, don't you
yeah,
know,
right.
Jeff? If the rest of the world says you can't do it, then America has to
That's to
figure
say
out
we
some way to
will.
let you.
Yeah, it's strange. The thing is, I would believe that FIFA is complicit in it in some way, shape, or form. And I know that probably sounds strange, but the being the licensee and all of that, they are getting a portion of those profits. So when you come to them and say, "Hey, are you all right if we add this thing to the game?" FIFA's got to consider it and be like, it could make us look bad. However,
I mean, but that's what we're learning about
yeah,
them, right? Is that every time the question came up of how is this going to make us look, it was never a matter of let's hide it, let's worry about it. No, it was all a game of kick the can. Yes, it will eventually, but the idea being that all of these officials that were in place at the moment were like, but by the time it comes back, I ain't going to be here. Like they weren't even trying to hide the corruption. They were just trying to stave it off long enough so that people could get out of there with their money and not have to deal with it. And all that we're actually seeing is this group of guys just ended up being the one holding the bag when everything finally fell down. Because like it's the amount of on display like bribery and extortion like is just phenomenally like bizarre and stupid.
yeah, it I don't know. I feel weird not having any affinity or affection for the World Cup because it's not like I'm a big sports guy, but at least I understand how all of them work. And again, there was that time. It was the weirdest thing working on the cruise ship and being there for World Cup and what they paid for. And they can do this because they're a corporation. They just bought the direct feed, and that's what they showed on all of the TVs in the crew areas.
Okay,
So it's like
yeah.
the direct feed that then ESPN might license so that they can put all their graphics and stuff over. But so
Hmm.
like being a direct feed, it's not like it zoomed in or switched or anything like that. It was just kind of like a big open view of the field, and there
Right.
was no score. Like you had to know who the teams were and the score. And I remember in the crew bar, that big whiteboard, and everybody was sitting down there and cheering because you have people from all over the world there cheering for their teams in this World Cup. It was this really cool thing to be a part of. And also to like not be a part of. I more got to witness it because as an American, we didn't really have any chit in the game at that year in 2010. Or maybe we did, but even then, like, even if we went there, we didn't get as far as we got, say, this year where
Hmm.
like we won like 3 or 4 games and made it significantly deep into the tournament. But it was really cool to watch them with the whiteboard, having who the two teams are and keeping score on that because all they had was the game. And I think in a lot of ways they enjoyed that it was just a pure showing of the game because you don't have all the infographics and stuff. But man, soccer, when I think about soccer and the fact that it's 2 45-minute like halves, which makes sense because they're halves, and that they don't stop at all.
Yeah.
That they play, and then any time when they would have stopped, when play is stopped, they add that to the end of it. So also you don't know how long, like the 45 minutes. It's like a football game is supposed to be 60 minutes long, right? It is 4 15-minute quarters,
Right.
but it takes about 3 hours when you could factor in TV timeouts and all these other things that are done to make the NFL profitable. Soccer is not like that. Soccer, there's ads leading into it. You watch 45 plus minutes of gameplay. Halftime happens, and that's where you're going to get more ads. And then the next thing happens. Like it's also very un-American in the fact that you can't monetize it the same way that we monetize everything in this country related to sport.
I mean, maybe, but they have definitely figured out ways to monetize it. You know, like
Oh,
there are definitely people making money
oh
off
yeah,
of.
no. It's not. I'm not saying that it's not monetized. I'm saying that America doesn't know how to monetize it.
Right, our usual
Yeah,
mechanisms for shoving a bunch of fucking like Subway sandwiches on the field is not going to work on this one,
yeah.
guys. Yeah,
And the fact that like there is no downtime in the game. There's no time where they're like, all right, so now we're gonna take a 15-minute TV timeout. And it's like, no, you're not gonna do that. We need to
oh,
play the full 45.
but Taco Bell paid for a timeout, Sprite paid for two, and we can't forget that Joe Rogan is here. We have to focus on him in the audience for a little bit.
Yeah, it's weird. And then I also think like racing has that sort of issue, right? Like that was another one. And the way they do that is that they just half the screen and have the race there, and on the other side they show ads. Oh, this has kind of depressed me talking about it. Like the World Cup, the competition of it is so pure, but the way that FIFA has treated it has really muddied the waters. And it's
I mean,
sort of the same way I feel
it's
about
gotten
the
into
Olympics.
some of the
Yeah, like
it's gotten into some of the play too, though, right? I mean, like we like soccer famously is the sport of faked injuries and bullshit, like fouls and terrible refereeing and like all of that stuff that we talk about affecting like all sports, like seems to be like 1,000 times worse in soccer as well. So like as you could say that the game itself is still pure, but even that has some of its issues. It's just the corruption is just so ingrained in this sport. And I mean, like I said, the more you think about it, the more you realize it's all sport, and that becomes the real issue, right? Is like the more you start thinking about it, the more you realize that all of these kinds of larger competitions are all this sort of stuff, and it's just how much are you willing to put up with it. It's why I love wrestling so much. Is that basically they took all pretense out of it, and they're just like, you know what's going on, we know what's going on, so let's all just agree this is entertainment and have a good time, right? Like.
And that doesn't mean that they're not really doing this stuff. Just
But and
because
we
the
still
outcome
hold
is that they're still athletes.
and we still hold the current belt holder in high regard. It is still a big deal to still be number one in what we know is essentially just like theater. But like, you know, it's some of the best improv out there as far as this stuff goes.
I mean, it's not improv. It's very highly like scripted out and choreographed, and I mean, there's definitely improv involved in it. But
Yeah.
watching when I got to work for WWE, God, however many years ago that was at this point, it was at least 10 years ago, setting up for like WWE events like Monday Night Raws, and being there and getting to watch the rehearsal of what would be the big fight that night was so freaking cool. Like, it was one of those things where like you signed an NDA because they didn't want you to go out and tell people what was going to happen.
Yeah, of course. Have they ever done an SNL skit of like Bob Fosse directing a wrestling match? If not, like I want to write that sketch for
That's
you,
a good
SNL.
sketch. I think that's a good idea. I can't imagine that they have. And honestly, one of the reasons why I think that they wouldn't do that, and this goes into all the sorts of weird politics of television, is that the WWE is in bed heavily with Universal Television. Like, that's why USA was the only place you could get wrestling for such a long time. So with SNL also being a Universal property because of the NBC connection, they wouldn't want to do anything that might sour the profitability of what they have with the WWE.
And this is Devin's TED Talk on why Mad TV needs to come back.
Maybe not Mad TV, but there should be an alternative. There should be alternative sketch comedy, is just the fact of the matter. And that's why we celebrated the Kids in the Hall coming back, because of the nature of that show, and just it's so much darker than what SNL is willing to do. And I think it's why other people, like, there are other sketch shows out there and people tend to lose their minds about them, and it's because they don't have to be SNL safe.
Right.
Not that SNL is safe all the time. We had on the Thanksgiving one, like the night before Thanksgiving, there's enough Thanksgiving SNL skits that they were able to put together a 2-hour compilation episode. And one of them was the Macy's Day balloons, like, come to life and murder people. Like, it was weird. I didn't understand the joke.
Yeah.
I'm like, what is happening here? Like, am I supposed?
Man.
This isn't funny. Like that. It's Madeline, and it's Kristen Wiig as Madeline, and oh, it looks like Kristen Chenoweth got caught up in. No, it looks like she's holding her. Oh my God, she dropped her. And it's just like, what is happening? Like, was this like we have a big skit coming up afterwards, so we just need like a small one that's mostly a video screen at the end of the day, because that's how they made them look like balloons. Was there was a big video screen behind them airing probably footage of them not being giants. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what we're talking about. It's been a weird week for me. That's what I need to say in terms of this. And this whole World Cup discussion, it's kind of exactly what I needed to try to get me back on track. So
well,
I
it's
thank
that
you
weird
for
time
that.
of the year, right, Dev? Like, right, we're getting towards the end of the year. Things are kind of wrapping up. As I said, we're literally in the finals for the World Cup. Like, so that all of that talk is going to go away finally, and we're closing up shop, folks. 2022 is closing up shop. It's getting ready to move on. This was not the worst year we've had the last few years, but it also wasn't a great one. So we're just gonna move on to 2023 now.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, we're in a time. Avatar: Way of Water came out. Did you see it? Have you gone? Did it have enough for you?
No, okay. Is this it? Is this the time to talk about it? Because I just don't know if I'm ever gonna see it to talk about it. Like,
Honestly, I don't think I'm going to rush out to see it. I think that some of the stuff from Indigenous peoples about their feelings about the story, and also what James Cameron has said about the Lakota tribes during the American like Indian Wars, which is what they're called. What is the other name for them now?
yeah, no, I mean the Manifest Destiny, the Indigenous Peoples Eradication. Let's talk about a whole bunch.
Like,
of
there's a whole like as much as we've like moved to Native American and Indigenous peoples, like that war is still called that. Like, because what else? If you're going to be real about what that was, it's like systematic genocide of Indigenous peoples is essentially what it is.
Yeah, and I mean, so that was always kind of so yeah. So I think in order to talk about Way of Water, we first have to go back and talk about the first one for just a second. Not that anybody out there doesn't know what this movie was, but like this is the follow up to James Cameron's Avatar from 10 years ago, right?
Longer than that, 12 years ago,
15, 12,
2009
yeah.
it came out.
It's been so yeah, so it's been a hot minute since we have seen the Navi, but here we are once again checking in. And I think what it is from what I understand in universe, it has been a 10-year jump so from the events of the first movie. And the problem is, and the thing is, I would love to get into like a larger, very special episode style breakdown of the first film, but I couldn't tell you fuck all about that movie now, and I have no desire to go and watch it again. Like that's the state I am at with the original film is like I remember sitting in the theater. I remember everybody telling me I needed to go see it, so me and a bunch of friends went to go see it. Um I remember walking out of the theater thinking that I liked it, like as a movie, like it was worth the 2 hours of my time, 2.5 hours of my time, whatever it was back then. But like I had even in that moment no desire to really kind of like jump back into it, and it's just never come back. So like I feel like first of all, we're in this weird place with Avatar where now the world is demanding you're either completely on board or you despise it. And I think that's ridiculous in any situation. Like I don't think I think there's definitely a scale in which you're allowed to like a thing. And for me, Avatar is a pretty solid 6 out of 10 film from what I remember about that movie. Like again, like I do remember walking out of that movie thinking I didn't dislike my time spent with it. I just didn't see I think what everybody else was seeing. Um and so I just don't really have a desire to go into a sequel of it, especially one that's more than a decade later.
I mean, the time between the movies is not a thing that would dissuade me from seeing the film. The fact that that first movie fucking sucked. I'll just like straight up say it. The story in that movie is not good. It's not engaging.
It's boring. Yeah.
It does whatever it wants to do too. Like the fact that spoilers for Avatar, a 13-year-old movie, I was 1 year off on my math, where like Sigourney Weaver goes into the tree and then is reborn as a Navi. Like what the fuck is that? Like
Yeah.
what the fuck is that? I don't get it. And the avatar suits, right? Like their avatar, their Navi avatars, are they human or are they biomechanical? Like, I don't understand. None of the science in that movie makes any friggin' sense. None
Well,
of the magic makes any sense. Like,
and so the thing is like that's I remember that being a big thing that was being held up, and even now, right? Is the science like not necessarily that the science is solid and aliens exist, right? But this idea being that the part of the whole hook of the first movie is that the world Cameron creates is such a grounded, real world that people find themselves literally getting depressed when they're not there, right? Like that is a thing that is apparently real in the world now, is that there are people that suffer depression because they are not of this race and in this world, and they have to go to therapy because of it, which is a whole level of which I don't really want to go much deeper because those people clearly need to speak with someone much more trained than I and then to talk to work that out. But that is something that is in the world right now, right? And I've never. And I'm with you. Like the science has always been so weird. Not least, like the prime example of that is the concept of unobtainium, which is what they had the balls to name the element that they were going after in the first movie. But as has been pointed out a million times, this is not new, but unobtainium is an actual true scientific term
yeah.
in the world of chemistry for a it is specifically for an element that has been discovered that we can get like some of like minuscule amounts of for study so that we can then eventually figure out what it is and name it. So like unobtainium is like the variable name that you put on something into on an element until you figure out what it is, right? And so it's not that that's not a scientific word, but in that movie, there are literally just boxes of this shit around. Some guy has a crate of it on his desk in one scene. That's not unobtainium. At that point, you have developed a name for that thing. What the fuck are you doing, Avatar?
well, and that the issue is because it's been described, like Cameron has tried to wave his hand and make that disappear, is that it has an actual term, but people still refer to it satirically as unobtainium.
See, so that's the bullshit though, right?
Yeah.
Like that's what happens in that movie. Is like we're told that this is a world that has all of these rules and regulations and we're all of that. But then as you said, at any moment though, those rules are completely like thrown out for them to do something insanely magical, like revive a woman from death by putting her body in a different body. It is just like what? Or not even another body, right?
Not
She
even another, but
literally
she
becomes the
literally
tree.
becomes it. I don't understand it because it's not like they take her consciousness and supplant it into her Navi avatar body. Like it literally, she's birthed into a new Navi body.
Yeah, I don't. I mean, here's the thing: the moment that that movie truly lost me on any of its like world building was when we are shown one scene in which they intertwine ponytails in order to make love, and another scene in which they intertwine ponytails with the horses in order to have a relationship with them, and I was completely thrown by this idea that like we're all just on board with the idea that we touch each other the same way. Like we're all cool with this. This is how this works.
One world, Sejin. We are all
Well,
Pandora,
and then
God's children.
and then this gets into some of the conversations that are being had by indigenous groups about these kinds of movies, and Avatar being the largest of these films. Like it's hard for it to not take the brunt of these, but like it is just it's this weird idea of like the rejection of these I mean, let's face it, white bodies, right? Like all of these guys that are fighting over this are all these white dudes, and like these rejection of these white bodies in order to give themselves in some like weird like get out style scheme to take over like Navi bodies instead. Like it is not surprising that there are some groups that are finding some of this offensive, right? It really speaks to some of that, like some of the ways in which we put people of otherness up on like a pedestal, like as Americans, as you know, as white people, as men. Like we take any body that does not look like our body, and we suddenly like we put it out there for examination. And like, first of all, what gives us the right like to like just pick apart and examine other people's bodies, like, and then on top of that, like why do we like it's this weird exoticism to it, right? Like we're just like, ooh, fascinating, this is different from us, we want to be this. That's like gross. That's really gross.
Yeah, yeah, no, it is. It's never sat well with me. People compare it to like Dances with Wolves or Fern Gully, and I see both of those critiques very high up. But I think the thing that I don't understand about it is everybody's like, but the work on display, the cinematography, the computer graphics, like everything about it, all the special effects, and I'm just like, okay, that's not what I go see a movie for. I personally go see most movies for the story, which
Well,
is going to
and
play into something we talk about later on in the episode.
but I think that this then kind of becomes that weird world again where they're forcing you to say either it's the greatest or it's the worst, and you don't get to say in between. And I don't think that it works that way, right? Because I think that it's more of two axes. Is not only does it have to be well done CGI, but it also has to be meaningful CGI in order for me to really kind of praise it. But that doesn't mean that I can't also enjoy some bad CGI if it's done for a good reason, or some good CGI but there for no reason. You know, like a movie like that, I think is something like Clash of the Titans, right? Another Sam Worthington classic. But like that, like phenomenal CGI moments in that movie that all amount to nothing. But I will still watch that movie 1,000 times over because it just looks fucking rad in certain scenes, right? Like that. Like I am fully on board for any amount of special effect, right? Like that's really kind of the big thing for me. I love any kind of like work that's put in, whether it's practical, whether it's CGI, whether it's animated. Like I am always cool to see how an effect looks on screen, to talk about it, to dissect it, and all of that sort of stuff. So it's not even that I don't want to be part of this conversation of the technical advancements of Avatar, but like the ways in which Avatar gets a pass on poor movie making in other aspects because the technology being used is so advanced. And it is. I'm not going to sit here and be like, oh, no, it's all bullshit. People just blow and smoke up the camera's ass. No, he has done phenomenal work as far as the tech is concerned with these movies. It is undeniable the ways in which he has changed movie making with these movies, right? That is fine. That for me though is like something I will watch because a class tells me I need to watch this. That isn't something that I want to go and sit through. I don't want to sit through 3 hours of a tech demo from James Cameron for what's going to be in every movie I watch for the next 20 years. I don't need that. I can just wait until a movie I want to see uses the same tech and then I can enjoy it. Like, and I think that's kind of what, like, part of it is part of the whole Avatar,
Yeah.
like, appeal for people is it's like, it's new, it's shiny tech. It's the same guy that used to shop at Sharper Image all the time and buying, I had a drone 10 years before anybody else did, and everybody thought he was the weird one on the block for having one. Like, that's the audience for Avatar in a lot of ways. And, that audience is larger than most, and, as is evidenced by the fact that they were able to run Sky Mall and Sharper Image for 20 years based off of guys just with too much time and money on their hands. Um, but this idea being that like that's enough for some people to enjoy this movie and hold it up as this like bastion of cinema is interesting to me, considering how many other movies they will reject for doing just for trying to do just that. Right, the number of times you hear somebody talk about how that movie's just a CGI fight fest and it's not worth your time because there's no plot, there's no character. That's a fair critique, but it seems like all of those people are suddenly super on board the second it's James Cameron being the one directing it. It's like, well, unless it's a James Cameron movie, then we don't have to care about plot or character at all, which I think is
I would
really.
be okay with that. I would almost forgive if they're like, as long as it's a James Cameron movie, at which
Except
case
that James
I don't
Cameron,
care.
except James Cameron has made phenomenal character story-driven films that have used new tech. Like look at Terminator 2, look at Aliens.
Yeah.
Like those are phenomenal action movies because of the fact that they push the bar in terms of actually having good character and story on top of being awesome action films.
I mean, Titanic. If we're gonna look at something, Titanic is fantastic. Rewatching Titanic because Dale wanted to see Avatar: Way of Water, and I'm like, then you have to see Titanic. That needs to be it. You can no longer stick your head in the sand about the movie Titanic. And I get it. I understand why it might not be appealing to somebody who wasn't alive during the time when Titanic came out. And we watched it, and I had a blast rewatching Titanic. I forgot how just like fun that like tragedy is for the first 2 hours, and then they're in the ocean for for another hour, and it's just like, now I'm sad.
Now I'm just sad.
But like, it's really enjoyable. But the reason why I'd be all right if people said unless it's James Cameron, then there would be that acceptance and admission of the the hypocrisy, right?
Yeah.
If the people were like self-aware enough to say, I don't really like the Marvel movies because it's just like watching a video game, right? There's no humanity there. It's just watching computers fight each other. And then that same person was like, and even though I hate Endgame, I'm still excited to see what James Cameron is going to do. I would respect that. I'd respect the person who like is self-aware enough to admit that about themselves and to admit it to another person. But like, that's the other thing that you don't see. You see these people, you see Hollywood crap on CGI movies and films that are like built on exactly what the original Avatar did, building on that same technology, taking it to its limit. And they're like, I don't want to do it. But then once comes out, they're like, well, I need to go see Way of Water. I need to see the new Avatar. And I didn't get the people who are like, I can't wait to see Avatar. And I'm like, well, what is it about? And they're like, I don't fucking care what it's about. Look how good the graphics are. And I'm just like, okay, well, that's not for me.
Do you want the truly like cynical tinfoil hat answer about all of this?
Sure, why not? This has been a weird episode. I'm in a weird headspace, so
you don't make so Avatar: Way of Water pretty infamously at the moment had a budget of like 1.2 billion dollars, I think, or something to that effect, right? Like that's not the announced budget, but the budget that James Cameron himself has come out and said, yeah, the number is this, but actually it was closer to this, and that closer number was like in the billions range, right? Mm-hmm. So this is $1 billion film. And so one of the other big reasons that everybody's been kind of keeping an eye on it is because like it needs to make its money back, right? If it does not become the #1 movie of all time by the time it's done in theaters, I think it's going to be considered a financial failure, right? No matter what the books report, we now know that because of Cameron's big mouth. So anyway, so you don't make a movie this big. this important, this crazy for this long, because he's been working on it for, as you said, over a decade, right? As well as the fact that he is working on three more sequels, and there is like a Disney Avatar world, right? All of this money is invested in this, and all of that money is invested from different corners of the entertainment industry. You have people that care about making sure that the movies are good. You have people that care about making the theme park good, the merchandise, the world, people that need to make sure James Cameron doesn't fail. This movie is literally too big to fail, right? And I think that's not too big of a stretch to say. Here's where it starts to get a little crazy in terms of that. You can see how an attitude like that, and depending on who is involved in the money side of things and who isn't, really starting to affect the ways in which this movie kind of gets talked about, right? Like, you really have to start questioning these people that are like, oh, well, we don't forget James Cameron's Avatar is coming out at the end of the year, and you're like, this is weird. This is the same critic that ripped apart the last two Avengers films or whatever, or ripped apart She-Hulk, or ripped apart this for having all CGI, all fluff, no story, but yet here they are saying this, and I bet you could probably trace a lot of it to they are invested in some way. In somehow, some way, somebody has money in this thing that they need it to succeed. So like you start wondering who is tied into what. And we know that Hollywood is an incestuous like machine. Like nepotism runs rampant in Hollywood. But like we don't really know how people are connected outside of things like family names and stuff like that. But they are. People are connected. So like it becomes this whole thing of, is Avatar, am I being force fed Avatar, being told Avatar is this groundbreaking thing that people need to go and see? Because at this point, the entire industry is kind of whole hog in on this $1 billion movie. And if it doesn't succeed, I mean, like, if this doesn't succeed, this is a movie that affects not just James Cameron, but Disney. This is a movie that affects the largest streaming service that has gone out and bought up other channels like Fox and I mean even Universal and all of that stuff to some point gets kind of shook if this movie does not succeed. Not to mention the theaters themselves, right? So I also cannot help but wonder if, because this movie is as large as it is and as big as it is in terms of not just money but also zeitgeist and all that, that like the industry as a whole really just needs this movie to succeed, and it's really feeling very desperate all around.
Yeah. It's really. Oh God, you just brought in a lot of things that I feel like really just weird about in terms of it. But then I want to talk about, if we can put ourselves in our headspace from a year ago, did you feel any of that pressure from something like No Way Home?
You mean like the FOMO pressure that we've talked about with Marvel, or do you mean the pressure of the industry with Avatar?
I'm
Because I feel like
the
there's two
same
different
sort of
things.
pressure from the industry for something like Avatar. Do you think that same thing happened with Spider-Man No Way Home a year ago?
No, the pressure that I would feel with going to any Marvel property, but let's focus on No Way Home specifically. The pressure
Yeah.
that I was feeling there was from fans, was from not to like point you out specifically, but like this is the most obvious one for people to recognize, right? Like you talking about it, people in my friend circles going out drinking and people wanting to talk about Spider-Man. It was all coming from my groups, my communities, my culture, right? Like those were the people telling me that I needed to go and see this thing. You know, nerds on Reddit that I also consider part of my community, and Discord channels that we're in. Like that stuff was making me feel this pressure. This feels like I'm seeing articles from like USA Today. I'm seeing articles from Forbes. I'm seeing stuff from like from Vanity Fair talking about how this is a quote unquote must see film, and then like you get the feeling at the end of it where it's like, please, we've put so much into the advertising for this movie, we need somebody to go, we need to make something, please.
All right, cool. That's why I wanted to check though, because I think it's undeniable that No Way Home was this huge movie, right? I don't think they expected it to be as big as it was. Now,
Right.
granted, there are a lot of other factors that could have played into it. It was sort of like America's return to the cinema in a lot of ways. So I think that was a big groundswell of it. It's a really good movie that's building on 20 years of cinema. Like it's a big payoff sort of film in a way that like even Endgame wasn't that same sort of payoff of trying to bring together three different franchises for like an ultimate good happy ending. And even then,
Endgame
like,
was Endgame was a bunch of MCU fans patting each other on the back. No Way Home was a bunch of Marvel fans patting each other on the back. It's a different story, but it encompasses the same fan base. So it just expanded kind of the love.
yeah. So like so it's undeniable like that's the type of thing, and it was what released in the slot that Avatar released in this year, and it's one of the things where like I'm curious there. And then also looking at something like Top Gun Maverick, which has gone on to be a huge moneymaker, I didn't feel any pressure from the industry there either. Like that was just one of those movies that like I was happy about Top Gun Maverick and the relative little coverage that it was receiving, because it meant that I was able to avoid anything about it until it was available to get at home.
Yeah, well, and famously, I think one of the big things with Maverick that's important to focus on is how much was Tom Cruise really the one invested behind it? You know, kind of in the same way as James Cameron is with Avatar, but it doesn't feel like everybody needed me to see Maverick. It does feel a little bit like Tom Cruise really needed me to see Maverick.
Right, but at the end of the day, it's different because Tom Cruise is Tom Cruise. He's a person,
right,
and it's different than Disney Corporation being like, you need to go see Avatar.
Well,
otherwise we'll kill Mickey Mouse. Like, whoa,
right.
That escalated, guys. But
it was people around me saying, you know, Maverick is actually really good. You should check it out. It was my friends, it was my coworkers, it was my family that were telling me this sort of stuff. It wasn't industry write-ups like being like, you have to see this movie or you're going to miss out on cinema for the next 20 years, which is like legitimately the conversation around Avatar, where they're like, come and see the tech now, because if you don't come and see it here, you're not going to understand what's happening in film for the next 2 decades. And it's like, whoa, calm the fuck down. Like,
but I guess the reason why I asked that about those two movies specifically is it also kind of feels like with Way of Water that they learned from those two experiences, and now they're trying to create an artificial groundswell the way that those two movies sort of organically had it happen. And then if you're a cynical bastard, like, you're going to notice that.
Right, from the tinfoil hat side of me that thinks that they're all working together to fuck me over, right? Like that idea being that the marketing machine saw the ways that worked for those two movies, and they're trying to recreate the marketing side of that. For sure. I don't think that this affected the film itself and Cameron's like whole like outlook on how he makes movies, because again, he's been working on this for 12 years.
Yeah. No, and I would never think that that's the thing, but I think that the marketing teams and the way it's being marketed, and then it's unfortunate, we've talked about this a bunch on this show, that marketing is what leaves the biggest impression about a film.
Oh yeah.
So like,
have we talked about the Nicole Kidman AMC stuff right now?
No.
Well, so Nicole Kidman filmed for AMC a Welcome Back to the Theaters like style.
Yes, I hate it. I absolutely hate it.
Yeah. Well, it's a meme now. Like it's such a huge hated thing that there's like petitions to get it pulled. There are petitions to keep it, like save it. There are YouTube videos, YouTube creators that are like recreating their own versions of it. It's become a huge meme right now. And it is that marketing push of like, come back to theaters, and it is that desperation. It smacks of that desperation that you're feeling on Avatar: Way of Water, that I think comes from this whole thing where like basically we chummed the waters with like the ways we reacted to Maverick and to No Way Home, and so because of that, the fucking sharks are out for Way of Water, right?
Yeah, I get it, and it's
but it feels like that desperate Nicole Kidman ad of like, welcome back, please don't ever leave me.
There's something about the magic of the movies. Yeah, there always has been, but like when you quantify it and then try to sell me movies on that, I kind of want to punch you in the face, right?
Yeah, I mean but that's what I mean. It's the same critique people have used up against Disney for their last half a dozen animated movies. Is they're like, stop trying to shove your magic down my face. But then like Avatar comes along, another Disney property, and they're just like, open wide for James Cameron, nom nom nom. Okay.
Yeah, it's true. I think I'm done with this conversation. I don't want to spend any more brain cells on this.
Moving on. One. What are we talking about next?
What are we talking about? You know, let's talk about. I think
it's 2-2 in the Argentina-France game now. By the way,
thank you. Wow,
France scored 2 points in the like 20 minutes we've been talking.
Way to go, France! I want to talk about. I watched another Christmas movie, right? I want to talk about a couple of the Christmas movies that I've watched, right? We talked a brief about Noel, which I had watched before the last episode, and then I watched Spirited yesterday. Well, it's the season, but I think what I've learned like I don't love Christmas content, right? I don't love holiday content. That is something that I will admit. And it feels really strange to me that like everybody kind of gives it a pass and then like where's my issue? And I think what I discovered watching Spirited was my issue is I want quality all around all year long. I don't want to like give them a pass at during the Christmas season. Does that make sense? Is that like, and I know it's a me thing, but it's something that I learned about myself, and I like because like something like Noel, I had very low expectations for, and then watching it, like it was a legitimately like good movie. Like I would watch that movie any time of year. Spirited, I hated Spirited. I didn't like it at all. I felt like it was like talking down to me as an audience member. I thought it had no respect for me. And then I'm like, so why do I feel this way? Why do I feel this way watching this movie? And then I went back to what you always talk about is that like people are a little bit more forgiving about a holiday movie. And it's one of those situations where like, yeah, if I wasn't holding this up to the same standards that I hold up every movie, maybe I would have had a good time with it. I don't know. Have you seen Spirited yet? Like, is it?
No, it's on Apple TV, which I don't have, so it'll be a while till I can get my hands on it.
That's
right?
fair. Yeah.
It's
on Apple TV. Yeah. And we have it because we use it. It's nice to have.
We did a trial of it for about 2 weeks, watched all of Ted Lasso, and that was pretty much the end of it. I got some Fraggle Rock in, and I called it good. So the whole thing about like the ways in which we judge Christmas movies, when I say give it a pass, when I say give it a break or don't judge them so harshly, I want it to be clear that like I think it's that thing. It's that famous Christmas like feeling. I wish this was something we could do year round, right? I wish that people could apply the same love and care and free spiritedness that they feel at Christmas, that they could just apply it all the time. And that's always the Christmas problem, right? Is that people are always so good and nice this time of year. Why the fuck can't they do it the other 11 months of the year? Anyway, that same thing gets applied to the movies, right? It's like I like that people are willing to just let a movie kind of just do its thing at Christmas. It like the ways in which people let a holiday special just kind of be and judge it on its own and don't necessarily like hold it up against, people will jokingly talk about like, well, my favorite version of Christmas Carol is George C. Scott, and everybody's like, well, no, my favorite version is Muppets, and then one guy in the back is like, well, I like the Kelsey Grammer one, and then everybody's like, shut up. Like those conversations definitely happen, right? But it doesn't feel like the stakes behind them are nearly as serious as they feel like in every other aspect, every other movie that comes out, right? I wish that people could watch a movie based on its own merit, forgive it for some of its sins, and just enjoy the hell out of it. I want that to be a thing people can do year round. And so, like, when I talk about holiday movies getting that pass, like, that's a joyful thing. That's a joyous thing. That's not like, oh, let's forgive bad movie making or let, like, bad filmmakers, like, get away with, whatever they're trying to, like, critique them if you want. And, like, yeah, if you're not enjoying a film or enjoying a filmmaker, like, don't give it your money. But if you're enjoying it in spite of its issues, then just fucking enjoy it.
Okay, so thank you. I appreciate that because I try to have fun with any movie that I watch, right? Because I'm giving my time to the thing. I don't want to just sit there miserable. And something about Spirited, I just was kind of miserable the whole movie. And I don't know why. I don't know what about it didn't jive with me. And then I wondered, well, like, are people talking about this movie? Is this something that's being talked about? Because the only reason we watched it is that my mother's like, everybody's talking about Spirited, and we have Apple, so why haven't we watched it yet? And I'm like, yeah, we're all home on Saturday. We'll watch it. It'll be fine. And watching it, and I'm just like, is it that I know where this is leading? Is it that I'm just not invested in this story? Is it the fact that I don't really want to support an organization that treats people the way that this organization is treating people in this movie? Like, I don't know where the disconnect was for me. And I don't want to take away any of it from you. I want you to be able to watch it and do that. I don't want to put any of my judgment there. But it did make me wonder, why? Is it that I'm like just incapable of giving movies the benefit of the doubt, especially holiday movies, the way that everybody else is? But then I think about like seeing just like movies that people absolutely hate and despise and having a great time with them.
Yeah, I mean, your metrics are just different. I think the important thing here is, and we'll fall back on an old favorite of the Say Report of like, the old cop out, but like this idea being like, enjoy a thing, don't enjoy a thing. That's fine. That is your deal. As long as you're not out there like ruining other people's day that did enjoy it, or if somebody else didn't enjoy it, you're not forcing it on them to like, no, you just don't get it. Watch it with me this way, right? I think of there's a YouTuber I like that like doesn't like Mexican food, right? And I have followed him for almost a decade now, and I cannot tell you how many times he has been with other YouTube groups, said that, and they have been like, "Oh, you just haven't been to the right Mexican place. I'll bring you someplace." And then inevitably, like a follow-up video of like, "Still don't like Mexican food, guys." Like that idea, right? Of I always think of that now whenever I think I want to recommend something to somebody. Am I recommending it because they said this is something they're interested in, and I want to like further this conversation, or am I recommending it because they're trying to tell me it's not something they're into and I'm trying to force this on them, because that's not like that ain't cool, right? So as long as you're not out there just like shoving like Arthur Christmas down somebody's throat, that where they're just like, I don't like animated movies, and you're not like shitting all over Spirited when somebody's just like Ryan Reynolds or Die, like that's, fine, that's cool. You don't have to love the movie.
Yeah, I mean, I was interested. I like Will Ferrell. I like Ryan Reynolds. If I had known that the director was the same director as Daddy's Home 2 specifically, it was all things that I enjoy, but then watching it, I just like, this doesn't work for me. So then what I spent the 2 hours doing was trying to figure out why so much Christmas entertainment doesn't work for me. And I don't know. But then I think of like A Big Fat American Christmas, I think is the name of it. I don't know. My mother kept calling it a Big Fat American Wedding, and it's like, that's not the name of the movie. She was mad that she couldn't find it on the Hallmark Channel, and I'm like, well, that's not the name of it, so you're searching for the wrong thing. But it's Big Fat something. And
like American Carol, the like really weird spoof movie with like Michael Moore that's
no,
like
no, no,
conservative.
no. It was a Hallmark movie that premiered this year on December 2nd. And my mother was really looking forward to it. It's when we realized that the Hallmark movies that are going up on the Peacock app go up after they've aired in real time.
Because Mom Big wanted Fat Family Christmas. Is that what you're talking about? Christmas,
yes.
Okay, yes,
yeah. Because they had that on, and I didn't watch it. Like, I just listened to it. I was doing work in the other room, and I enjoyed that one, like, for what it was. And I can like listen to them and be like I'm sure that the quality of this, like, you can tell that the sets aren't like A-tier sets, right? Like, they're just doing what they can do. Kind of like Falling for Christmas, the Lindsay Lohan one, right? I didn't hate that one, but the story was engaging enough that I had a good time. Spirited, it just felt like we want to do a musical. And then like the big,
like that's the point of that movie. Yeah.
And then the big twist of the movie, I like saw coming the second the movie. I'm like, oh, I know how this is going to go. And it like, so that there was no payoff when it came to the big twist. And I don't know, like there was some fun stuff to be had in it. Like Ryan Reynolds and Will Ferrell are clearly just having a ball with the movie. But like story wise, I'm just like, yeah, no, I don't think this one works for me. And like, am I being the asshole in saying that, in applying judgment to this Christmas movie? Or should I just try to enjoy the Christmas of it all?
I mean, it's not an asshole-ish thing. You didn't like a movie. I think that it becomes an asshole-ish thing when like you get out there and you're starting to like tell people like, don't watch it, it's bad, or like don't, or like this whole like, let people figure out for themselves. Obviously, if there is something so atrocious in a film that you're just like, I feel like this doesn't merit other people like spending their money on it, like that's a different conversation. But like, your mother is right. I have heard many of people talking about Spirited this year, and people seem to be generally having a good time with it. It's not blowing people away. Like I don't think there's been a Christmas movie this year that people are just like losing their shit about. Honestly, the number one Christmas movie I've heard people really kind of like really deep diving into this year is actually Klaus, of like the Netflix animated one that came out I think last year, maybe 2 years ago. Was up for the Oscar and everything. It just seems to be a weird like. I think the Netflix announcing that they were going to cut back on some of their animation stuff, I think has had a really interesting ripple effect in the last half of the year, of a lot of people really getting into Netflix animated stuff and really like defending it, and really, I think, trying to make Netflix look bad by talking about like look at the quality products they were putting out, and then we'll never see anything like this again because they cut all their animation shit. Although we're seeing more and more animation come out of them every day, so I don't really know how much that actually mattered. But I feel like in that like look back, right, Klaus has gotten this weird resurgence this year. So if you're looking for like a I mean, literally Oscar nominated, right? Like animated film about Christmas. Like try Klaus. Maybe the quality of that will be enough.
Yeah. I'll check it. I don't know. Maybe I'll check it. I don't know. I don't want to make like a promise here or not. I have
Norm Macdonald's last role.
oh, don't do that. Come
I mean,
on.
that's the big thing that people. That's the other big thing people are talking about with that movie is like not realizing he was in it and watching it and like getting hit with that fact and like.
Yeah. I don't know. It just I tried to solve the Christmas problem for me. And I don't know. But then like I think and then I was thinking as I was about to talk about it, something like Noel, which was also like pretty rote Christmas stuff. I really enjoyed that movie. Like I found myself enjoying it almost in spite of myself. Like this is ridiculous, but give me more. I need more. I just didn't feel that way with Spirited. I don't know. I guess I wonder at the holidays is the big thing, because like am I not into it for whatever reason? Do I have an some sort of aversion to the holiday spirit? And again, I think what it boils down to is that I try to embrace it all year long, so then when it comes to Christmas time, either it's fatigue on my part or having everybody else do it, there is that like cynicism of like, why can't we be like this all year round, guys?
Yeah, yeah, that's I mean in Christmas stories and holiday stories in general that want to lean into that attitude of like this is just the way that humans should be, like I those are always going to get top tier billing for me over some of the other ones that I might enjoy but they just don't kind of have that feeling, right? I mean it's why Christmas Carol works as well as it does for me when it's done right, is because like I mean that idea being that Scrooge changes himself for the better forever, not just for Christmas Day, right? Unfortunately, too many of these Christmas movies just feel like the entire thing is like, can't you just for one day be nice? And it's like, okay, for one day I can learn to be good. It's like, okay, but I definitely feel like on Monday when you get back to the office, you're still a dick.
Yeah. I'm interested for when you get to see Spirited. That's what I'm going to say based on what we just said. And that's going to be where I leave the pin. 'Cause I'd like to talk about the week that I've had. I'd like to talk about this week that felt like forever to me. Can I do that?
Wait, I didn't say no. Suddenly we ask each other for permission.
I'm asking for permission because it's just I don't. All right, so the big thing,
is it
right?
going to be a bummer? No bummers.
It's not going to be a bummer. I think it's going to be. Overall, I had a pretty good week. It's just Saturday, the Saturday before our last recording, right? So the 10th of December. I got to see some friends and we all went out to breakfast, and it was kind of like, this is going to be our big, like, see each other in December before all the holidays happen and it becomes hard to see each other. And we all went out for breakfast, and it was a lovely time. We had a lovely time. And clearly we were all safe afterwards. Like nothing happened with that as numbers were rising. Like it just seemed like the right time to do it. And then what I proceeded to do with the rest of my week in relationship to that was like hardcore video gaming hours. On Monday I had the second round of Retro Battle number 3. I was at 6:00, so right as I got home I had to like turn on my computer and be ready to compete. And that went we went through 4 rounds of that. So it almost was 2 hours long of just playing games there. And then what I followed that up with was going upstairs, and I've still been trying to platinum River City Girls 2. And I wanted to get that platinum on River City Girls 2 in the Japanese versions because the American release was coming on Thursday the 15th. So I wanted to like close the book on those. Funny story about that, I'm sitting at 99% at both of them. Something is missing in the game. There's no way to get 100% in the release that happened in Japan and other Asian territories.
Like you can't figure out what it is though, or like you know what it is, but you don't want to like ruin it for people. Like
River City Girls 2 came out on Thursday, the 15th of December. Mm-hmm. I platinumed it at midnight on the 16th of December.
Doing everything that you also did in the Japanese version.
Yes. So I don't know what is missing. And it's other people have said I'm sitting at 99% on PlayStation and PlayStation 5. I've done everything that can be done. I think so it just seems like it's glitched. Like the one thing to like click it over is not there. And
I mean,
because
I gave up on trophy tracking this year because Tiny Tina's, which Borderlands 3 also had some issues with this. I think you actually ran into some of these issues.
Yep.
But like Gearbox's achievement tracking on PlayStation has been atrocious for their last two games because like there's definitely stuff where it's like story beat stuff where like, hey, I did the story beat and the thing didn't pop, and now there's literally no way for me to go back and recreate it. And then there's like other the ways in which trophies have been kind of broken for a while has been really starting to eat at me.
Yeah. And it's one of those things, like, I stopped doing it, like, there was one trophy where it was just ridiculous. Mortal Kombat 9, honestly. I still, like, hunt for trophies and stuff like that, but Mortal Kombat 9 was the one where I realized, oh, I don't need to get every single trophy, because it was literally to play for 24 full hours as every character in the game for one of the trophies. So... like, there's 24 characters. They want 24 days of your life. And it needs to be a full 24 hours. There's a way that they track it. And, like, I was doing, like, there was an exploit where you could just leave your PlayStation on and do it. And then I'm like, this is ridiculous. Like, this is supposed to be fun. And I have to say, in terms of achievements, a lot of the achievements that I'm seeing now are... play the game, have fun. Maybe if you do something like stupid, we'll have a trophy associated with that. I dig that. The trophy list for River City Girls, aside from the fact that you need to recruit every single variant of every single recruitable enemy, like that is a slog. That is the last thing that I had to do to get the 100%. On that. Like, I'm like, I did everything else and I wanted to test it, right? I wanted to test how far I'd got if I didn't catch anybody. Because historically in the first River City Girls, Dale and I were going to give up on platinuming the game because we didn't want to have to try to catch every single variant of recruit. And we're like, all right, well, let's just finish the game. If we finish the game and we don't get the platinum, then we know we have to catch everybody, and we're not doing that. And we finished the game and the platinum popped and we're like, oh, okay. So they took you have to catch one of each enemy type, but not every specific color available. That makes sense, right?
Okay.
Like there's something there. So I did that, and I had on the 99 game, I had caught every type of recruits on my PS4, my Japanese PS4 clear. And I'm like, so it's not something there, right? Like, we've already tested it. But then I'm like, but also, I don't know if that 99% is already counting to 99% because I caught one of each type of enemy. So I said, I'm not going to catch any of them on my American run through on PS5, and we'll see what happens. And at the end of it, I was 5% short. I was at 95%. And I'm like, okay, cool. And as I would catch guys, like every 10 or so would increase the percentage by 1. And I'm just like, this is ridiculous.
Oh God.
And that's a grind. Like that's a legitimate grind in a game where like, because there's 6 different color types of about 12 separate types of enemies. So it's just a ridiculous amount of gameplay that you have to put into it. And I did it, and I'm happy to have the platinum, but, like, that's what I did when I wasn't competing in Retro Battle. Because then, like, Tuesday, I just tried to finish the PS4 version of River City Girls from the Asian territories. On Wednesday, I had another match in Retro Battle 3. I lost in 3. I just got schooled. I don't know enough about the lost levels, and I had to play that game for Super Mario. I got kind of close in Sonic 1 special stages, but I thought that 6 emeralds was the end, but they had added a 7th one because it was a special ROM hack of special stages. So I was not...
How would you... But you weren't informed of that, or you...
Well, I mean, I kept playing and found it, but I didn't know if it, like... The mission was collect all emeralds, Sonic 1 special stages. So I think it's 6, so then I'm like, well, I'm going to keep going, right? Like, there's a place to go and there's a ring there. But I don't know if I have to do this, right? Because by all accounts, if I'm supposed to collect all the emeralds from Sonic 1, there are only 6 Chaos Emeralds in Sonic 1.
Exactly. Yeah,
so I thought that I had done it. So, but when the game didn't stop, when it wasn't there, I'm like, oh, I guess we're still going. And, you know, and that's just how it happened. I don't know. Like it's strange. Though I really enjoy Retro Battle. I'm glad that I took place in it all 3 times that I have. But because it's ROM hacks, a lot of the games that you're playing, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's the same sort of thing. Like when I hear Sonic 1 collect all the Chaos Emeralds, I think of the 6 Chaos Emeralds that you need to get in order to get the weird, like, all the flowers bloom ending of that game.
Right, yeah.
So then when you do it, like a wall that was there had disappeared and I ran through it and I had beaten the level and I'm like, oh, okay. Oh, so now is it like more staged? I don't know how to take this because I'd never played the game before. It's not like I stopped. I kept playing and then I ended up losing there. I'm trying to remember what the other game was between all of these things. I don't recall. Was it another Sonic game? I don't remember what the third game was, but I got beaten in that one too. 3 games, 3 points to the competitor, who is now competing for 3rd place in the match as we record this. But it was a great time. I loved being part of Retro Battle and all that. But then, like, afterwards, right, I stayed up till midnight to see if River City Girls, the American version, would release. And when it did, I played River City Girls until 5 a.m. So, like, it has felt like the longest week because I just feel like all I've been doing is going to work and playing games. And I've
River
been
City
keeping,
Girls
like,
specifically.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. So I get the platinum on River City Girls 2 it was like 12:30 that it actually popped. And I'm like, all right, that's not bad. It's like it took me 24 hours to get it. And that wasn't 24 hours straight. We went to Hosmer again and picked up more soda, specifically for the Christmas holiday. I think I watched some shows with my parents. Like, I was only dropping into River City Girls when I had the extra time. So it's not like I paid for 24 hours straight, right, to go back to Mortal Kombat 9. But then when I finished River City Girls, I'm like, all right, well, the DLC for Vampire Survivors also came out today. And I don't want to miss out on the special pricing for the day one release because it was, instead of $2, it was $1.70.
Right, yeah.
So
yeah,
I'm like,
course.
well, I got to go play that. So then I went downstairs and I played until 3 a.m. Vampire Survivors DLC.
Nice.
Which is excellent. I really have to. The new map that they introduced, Mount Moonspell, it's like 6 separate biomes in one map. Like, it's actually exploring around and finding pathways to move. It's not like just a big open area like all the other maps have been. So it's cool to see how it's evolving already.
Yeah, no, I am excited to get in on some more Vampire Survivors stuff too. Just after the way that it hit this year and them actually, really supporting it. You and I were having this conversation. I can't remember if it was on mic or not though, about like this seems to be like maybe what the financial plan is going to be for them going forward is like the game is $5 and the DLC I think on its own is $2, right? And then if they just keep adding to it and they keep wanting to charge people $2-3 for additional stuff, like that seems like the way to do it. Yeah, like I mean I don't know how much money is needed in games like this, right? Like when somebody is like, I dedicated my whole life to making this game, $5 for a game just doesn't seem like enough. But it's done gangbusters. It's done huge.
Yeah, and this game was not one of those I've dedicated my whole life to it things. This was just like a side project for the creator. And then, because it was all built on using assets. Like, he bought an asset pack. That's why all the stuff looked like Castlevania things in the beginning. And then as the game became profitable, he realized, well, I don't want to get sued somewhere down the line. So that's where everything got redrawn to be sort of its own style of Vampire Survivors. But then, like, the things that you need to consider is, like, hiring James Stephanie Sterling, to do the bestiary entries. And, like, that's payment. Like, they got paid for that job.
Right.
So, like, there needs to be somewhere where the money is going now, because it's not just the guy who threw the game together for fun and then it hit gangbusters. So then they kept building on it in order to, like, see and what people wanted and like try to just feed all of these references. But I do remember, because like with tax it came to $1.79, and I said, oh, and the Vampire Survivors stuff is available and it's only like $1.79 today. And my mother's like, It's $179. And I'm like, yep, that's right. It was a $5 game. And then for the DLC, that's how they're going to get you. That's how they're really going to make their
$200
money.
DLC.
Yeah.
Also, the main game is now broken unless you buy this DLC.
Yeah. Like, I'm like, oh, God. I mean, that. And we joke, but like, I wouldn't put it past EA.
Oh,
I wouldn't put it past Activision Blizzard for something like that. Diablo 4, you get it for $5, but then if you want to use anything, it'll be an additional $200. Heck, like, I'm not playing it, right? Because I have really strong opinions against J.K. Rowling, and it unfortunately is going to like bleed into anything else Harry Potter. But the new Hogwarts game with the like $10 premium to be able to cast the unforgivable curses, like, that's a weird thing.
Yeah, it's especially because there's supposed to be an online element to that, right? Like an MMO style element to that one.
Yeah.
Am I misreading that game?
No, you're
okay.
correct.
It's so we talked about this a little bit with Vampire Survivors in the mobile version, right? Where you were talking about how there is a way to get lives and power ups and all that stuff by watching ads, right? And I was saying at the time, I was like, that feels a little weird. Like, you don't get those opportunities on PC, but as I pointed out in that conversation, as long as they're not like using comparable like leaderboards to like out, basically push out people that don't have those opportunities, I guess it doesn't really matter, right? But when you get into an MMORPG like Harry Potter, like allowing people to pay extra money in order to have unstoppable like power is kind of bullshit.
Yeah, no, it definitely is.
Yeah.
And it's so weird, like, that it's the murder spells that they put the premium on. Like,
yeah, I mean, that's a whole other level to it. Is like, also, if you want to be the worst kind of Nazi, here's the $10 upcharge. Yeah, that's wild.
Yeah, I don't know. Going back to the Vampire Mobile, because we didn't really talk about it. I was in the beta for that, and then once the Game Awards, it released to everybody, so anyone can play it. Real respect that it is a free-to-play game, and that the way that they're making their money is just with those ad buys. Where
yeah,
if
I
you
mean,
wanna...
it didn't have to be. $5 mobile games are not unusual nowadays.
Right.
It could have very easily just been that. Yeah.
And $5 mobile games that then have that element as part of them.
That still
right?
have the ads in it. Yeah.
Sorry, Santa Claus is coming by on a fire truck if you guys hear sirens in the background.
Oh, well, that's really sweet.
he throws Tootsie Rolls at the children.
Oh,
I'm a big fan of it. And yeah, it's the Sunday before Christmas. That's the other thing, right? Like, we're in the home stretch to Christmas right now. And I mean, does it feel like that to you? How are you doing Christmas wise?
We're doing okay. It's been a little bit of a struggle getting like decorations and stuff up this year, but we're finally there. We've got things going. It's also the first night of Hanukkah.
Yes.
Is tonight. So we've got a whole bunch of stuff going on. But we've got some plans to see family. I'm saying that with trepidation because obviously with all of the stuff going on with variants and stuff like that, I feel everybody needs to be safe. And I'm working through that on our end to make sure that we can still see people. But yeah, we're pushing through, but it's definitely been a little bit more of a struggle this year than usual.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad that you guys are good and everything. Like, what about Christmas shopping? You get all your Christmas shopping done?
I kind of just came to the realization this year that we just needed to just do some more Amazon stuff. The last couple of years, we've really tried to support local, first of all. Secondly, not support Amazon if we do have to buy something online.
Right, and you have every reason to feel that way as a former Amazon employee. Like,
but even beyond that, right? Like, as a human being, seeing the way that they are in the world, like not wanting to support them, we've tried to limit what we do through Amazon, over the last few years. And we're very proud of that. But also, you hit a point where it's not safe to be going out shopping. Shopping in general is crazy this year because people are finally feeling like they can go out and go about. So there's like shopping plaza areas that are just a mess and all that. So, we have found ourselves just having to lean into doing some more of the online stuff. And unfortunately, with some of the shipping deadlines and the ways that things have been held up, right? Amazon's one of the few places that where you're currently at this point in time guaranteed to get it before Christmas. Ordering it from a local shop might not even mean you get it right away nowadays because it might take them 3 weeks to get it in store. So we've also kind of had to come to terms with that, and it's that weird feeling of like it's Christmas and I really want to make sure I'm making the world a better place, and this is the total opposite of that. But also I want to make sure that individual people in my lives' days are better. So trying to strike that balance has been a hard one this year.
Yeah. I mean, I was happy to. That's the other thing is in addition to all the other stuff I did, like I did my Christmas shopping this week, and I feel like that's a weight off my shoulders to just have it all done. And I used to be the guy who went out shopping on the 22nd of December. Like that was my tradition. And it feels pretty like to know like I have like no responsibilities now, right? I just go to work for 4 more days and then I have a bunch of time off for the holiday, and that's exciting to me.
Oh, by the way, there's a package coming your way.
Oh, thank you.
Just a little something you and Dale have to share. I actually think it might even be named for Dale. So remind her that she is.
That's something coming for good. I appreciate that. Yours already came because the supply chain is a fucking monster. Like,
Yes, yeah,
I'm fine with it. It's okay, but it's just one of those situations where like this will be released then, but don't expect it until here. And I'm like, oh, awesome. And then I get, oh no, Sejan just got the package, and I'm like, well, I hope that he knows that this is still Christmas.
Yeah.
This was
I know.
purchased as a
I'm excited to
Christmas
hear. I'm excited to hear specifically what you and Dale think about what I sent your way, because that's the other thing is it was a tight year in the old Sarah household.
Well, it was a tight year here too, but again, because of all these, like setting up pre-orders for things that then it says this will not be released until May 2023, and then it shipping in November.
Yeah, yeah.
And arriving and being like, well, I really thought I was going to have time to budget out this purchase.
Right.
I didn't think my bank account would be almost dry going into December. But, I got paid last Friday, and that's why I'm like, while I'm cash rich, I'm going to make sure I get gifts for everybody.
Yeah.
And that's the other thing, like gifts for everybody. I mean, now like the people in the house. Right, like I used to do it for like friends and stuff, and it's not that I don't have friends. And getting to see the people that I got to see for breakfast meant a lot. And we chat and we stay in contact with everybody. But like, it feels weird to give people stuff now because of the whole I don't know, like the whole paradigm shift of like what is socially acceptable is so strange to me. Like, I'm no longer expecting anything from anybody because, like, oh, and then I gotta, like, wipe it down and wait to use it.
I mean, I think it's for the better in the long run, right?
Yeah.
I mean, the idea being that, this can get really heady and bullshitty talking about the idea of, like, the weight we put on material goods and all that sort of stuff. But opposite of that, like, I am finding at this point in my life that it is much more meaningful to me to just, like, spend time with people, right? And I think that's not unusual. I'm not saying that as if I've discovered something that the rest of the world needs to figure out. It's just that I am at that point where I'm now discovering it, right? Like, is you hit a point in your life where you realize that the Christmas and Hanukkah and the holidays and all of this sort of shit is like, it's tied more to just like the stuff that you're doing at that time than it is like the stuff that you got. I mean, like, I look back on the bullshit in my room and I'm looking around like at my desk and all of this, video games and books and clothes and toys, and I'm trying to figure out, like, I don't think I can name anything on here that came from Christmas. I know some of this stuff did. I was given some stuff for Christmas, but I couldn't tell you what parts of it came from that. That stuff just isn't tied to it in that way. Whereas I could talk to you a hell of a lot about what I did like 2 Christmases ago when we were like stuck in the house, and so what we did was we threw a feast in the house and we had people come over and sit on the other side of our garage and stuff. And that was really fun. And like that memory sticks with me. And I associate that with the holiday.
Yeah,
right?
I get that.
So
I mean, like,
that's that's just the way of it now.
Party that we used to have here. Like that was the big memory of the holiday.
Right.
And that's what carried us through.
Now. That's great.
Yeah. I don't know. I just want to make sure, like, if anybody's listening to this and I didn't get you a gift, it's not that I don't care about you. It's that I care about you in a different way.
I don't know, man. I think one of the big problems that we had was that social media connected us all so drastically that our quote unquote friends group, right? What we considered to be the people important in our lives that we would make that time for and financial room for to like buy gifts and shit kind of blew up to an unreasonable amount. Like people suddenly started finding themselves dedicating a lot more of their emotional selves to a lot more friends than they ever had to before because we were staying connected that much longer into that many more people, right? And I think that that kind of, for me at least, really added to that feeling of like, well, at what point am I cutting people off now? At what point are you receiving a Christmas card? At what point are you receiving a Christmas gift? At what point are you receiving a Christmas visit? Like, who am I making time for? Like, all of this shit is just stressing me out. And like running a social circle that is larger than, you know, a handful of people, which is what you used to do before you stayed connected to people for the rest of your lives. Like, it's become much more manageable now because there's been this huge shift away from social media again. The idea that I no longer have a Twitter isn't really that weird. The fact that I haven't been on Facebook, truly on Facebook in like 5 years, isn't really like offensive to people like it once was. There was a time where I used to say like I don't go on Facebook much and people were just like, you're never going to succeed in life. You're literally not going to be able to find jobs if you're not on Facebook, like hammering home like those social interactions with other people in the field. And it's just like the fact that my success is tied to my time on Facebook is stupid. Like yeah, and like that just and like I'm saying, I don't think that's the case anymore, right? Like you're not. People are not saying like if you don't have an Instagram, who are you? Like that just doesn't exist anymore. And I'm happy for that. And I think this holiday is really going to be an interesting one because as people are kind of coming out of their COVID shells and realizing they want to go and see people they haven't before, they are now going to have to make those kinds of decisions about who is still involved in these circles now, you know?
Wow, it is. It's a truth, right? I don't even know. I don't know how to feel about COVID. Like I thought it was getting better, and then just hearing that people at the office have it, and it's like, oh, okay, cool. Like, so when was the last time you were here? Like, I know that it's manageable.
About COVID is that it's never going away.
Right.
COVID is going, and the thing is that COVID was here before, right? That's the other thing is we always had like a COVID
coronavirus always existed.
Exactly.
The COVID-19 of it all becoming a pandemic virus. Like, and that's the other weird thing is like the fact that we still call it COVID-19. Like, shouldn't these variants be like the coronavirus of this year? Or is it all still based on that original viral strain and mutations? Like, I don't know. We're not virologists.
Yeah, I don't know how the naming conventions of viruses work, but as far as I understand it, because certain parts of the makeup of this particular virus are not different enough, it is still technically considered a variant of 19 as opposed to a new version. I have no idea where that cutoff is. They haven't done enough updates to this one to merit a new version output.
It's not a sequel, guys. It's just DLC. Ugh, I hate that I just said that, but it's kind of true. Like, I guess that's the way they look at it. It has to do with the DNA. Like, you need to remember that viruses are alive.
Yeah.
And there hasn't been enough of a generational shift to it. Like, at its core, it's still basically venom. It's not carnage. I did a lot of mental gymnastics to make that work for me.
There you go, bud.
Oh, buddy. Is there anything else that you want to talk about? Like, I don't know. Like, this was a really weird week for me. I think I've hit most of this stuff. The Santa Claus has ended, which was enjoyable. There's going to be a second season of it, and I don't know how I'd feel about that. Like, it wasn't one of those shows that I was expecting there to be more seasons of.
Is it official that there's more season, or are they just saying we would love to do more seasons?
Oh, it's been approved. The release that said that they're going to show the first 2 episodes on ABC, along with that was, and in celebration of it being renewed for a season 2, we're going to be showing the first 2 episodes on broadcast television.
Interesting.
Yeah. So there's going to be a second season.
Also, by the way, but
why?
yes.
Why bullshit? What part of it is bullshit?
they would have been showing it on TV whether or not they got approved for
Oh,
2 seasons.
yeah,
Because it's
exactly.
a
But it's
marketing ploy to get people to then say, "Well, fuck, we
we
should
should
get Disney
get
Plus
this,
for the
we should
month."
get Disney
Yeah,
Plus
yeah.
and
So
catch up. Like, yeah.
that's
Oh
all.
yeah, it's all that. But it's the fact that like that. It's more. The only reason I bring it up is more like that's how they framed it in their announcement was, "Hey, we've gotten a second season, and as a reward to you." You can watch it without a subscription. Well, the first 2 episodes, to titillate you, because we're basically selling Disney Plus the way we sold crack.
First hit's free, kids.
It's first hits free, kids. Ugh. And it's
No,
weird.
I mean, there's 2023 is looking really interesting. There's going to be some really wild stuff. We have Guardians of the Galaxy 3, which by all accounts is going to be ending the Guardians stories in the MCU.
One would imagine,
mean-
since James Gunn is now pretty safely ensconced into DC territory.
I mean, that doesn't mean anything. They could get a different creator to handle them, but I don't know if they're going to. We'll see, because
Yeah.
he's been the kind of the heart and soul of all of that. I mean, we have a new Indiana Jones that looks like it's coming out. There's as far as like video games go, Breath of the Wild 2 will finally be here, supposedly. There's a whole
Well,
bunch
it's
of
got a
crazy
date.
shit.
It's got a date, Sejin.
And
I
that's
can't
never
believe it has a
changed
date,
in
yeah.
video games ever.
Well, with Nintendo, I feel
yeah.
like it tends to mean something. Like, they try not to give a date unless they know they're going to be able to hit that date.
Yeah, no, I look, you're not wrong. It's just that I'm not gonna hold them to it. I just don't. I don't have it in me to be like looking forward to a date that is so far out that could easily change. So
I mean, I'm still going to take the day off as soon as possible. So that if it does come out, that's the other thing. I'm gonna play Breath of the Wild 2, Tears of the Kingdom, but I didn't really care about the first game. It's so.
I mean, just
yeah.
2023 is going to be a wild year of like diving back in. I mean, isn't the new Transformers with like the Beast Wars stuff
Oh
starting?
yeah,
Like,
the
which is a
Rise of
whole
the
new-
Beasts.
Which is like a whole new era for those movies. I mean,
It's
Avatar: Way of
weird. They
Water-
want it both ways. They want it both ways with the Transformers because apparently it's a direct sequel to everything that came before, but also
Right.
it's new ground.
You're
But
right, a reboot.
yeah, so
Yeah, no, I mean that's not unusual in these big series either. But I mean, like we talked about Avatar: Way of Water today, and it's definitely a 2022 movie. But the impact of it and the conversations about it are going to be all the first part of 2023. That it's not going away. I mean, unless some crazy thing happens where it makes just enough money to be considered like success, but not like a mind-blowing one, and they're just like, we'll just keep on trucking, see you in 10 years with the next one. Like, I don't see that happening. I think these conversations that we're hearing about that are going to be going on for a while too. So we've just 2023 is kind of already here with some of the stuff that we know that's coming, and that's kind of where I'm at. Is like I'm very excited for the holiday. I'm very excited for the next couple of weeks of spending time with my family and stuff like that. But like as far as the show goes, as far as like my nerdiness goes and all of that shit, like I'm already in 2023. I'm already there.
well, of course, this is our last new episode. Like, to be completely honest with everybody, because next week we're going to be celebrating Three Ninjas. Like, so if you want to do the homework for it, that's going to be a time capsule, technically, episode that's recorded beforehand so that we can just enjoy Christmas and not be recording on the day. Imagine if we recorded on Christmas. I mean, I would never want to do that. We plan things out too well. And then you're also going to have a very special episode from us, which, Season, do you want to reveal that here too so that the people will know? Or do we want it to be a big surprise?
I mean, no, I think we need to let people know so that they can build up the time to watch it.
Yeah.
We're going to be talking about The Godfather. I mean, we're on the 50th anniversary of possibly the most influential film. We'll talk about it when we
At
we
least
watch
the most influential film since Citizen Kane, right? Wink. I don't even know what I'm doing.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know what you're doing. I don't think there's going to be a lot of Citizen Kane talk in the Godfather episode. Maybe,
no, I don't think.
but,
no, but if we're going to talk about influential film, that's the narrative around Citizen Kane. But yeah, we're talking about The Godfather. I'm excited. Like, you got me excited, and I know that we were talking about movies that made us, but like, it'd be undeniable to like look at The Godfather and not see how it affected some, if not all, of the films that we watched this year for very special episodes.
Well, and not just affecting film, definitely that, and we will talk about that, but the ways in which The Godfather kind of like affected the ways that like what we want from quote unquote good cinema and stuff like that. Like I think Godfather's to blame for things like too long of movies that where they get into like too complex of plots in the second act, all leading to nothing in the third. Like there's conversations to be had about the ways in which it affected more than just filmmaking and in general, but also just like entertainment.
Yeah. So that should be a fun one. So that's it. So yeah, this is us saying goodbye from 2022 in an official episode. We have Three Ninjas again. That's going to be dropping on the 26th, and then The Godfather on the 29th. So those are things to look forward to. And then we'll see you again. We'll be recording on the first day of the new year, which is exciting.
2023.
So, yeah, just be kind to each other. Enjoy your holidays. If you want to get in touch with Siegen about anything specifically, the best place to find him on Twitter is now at The Say Report.
Yeah, and if you want to try and find Dev, and if you want to hit him up with any of your holiday like go-to films, see if maybe you can bring a little bit of the spirit back to Dev. You can find him at Devin D. Decker.
Yeah, I'll watch your movies in between seasons of Letterkenny, because I'm stupid excited for season 11 of Letterkenny coming out on the 26th of December. I love it. It's such a great Christmas tradition, is new Letterkenny now. I feel like we should talk about that sometime, but that's for later. Until now, happy holidays to all, and to all a good show. William, please bring us home.
Thank you for listening to the Say Report with your host Devin Decker and Siegen Serwick. Please follow the guys on Twitter and Facebook by searching for The Say Report, and you can always subscribe on your podcast channel so this is delivered straight to you and you can enjoy it every week. With apologies to your mother, we'll see you next time.